as Huijing mentioned, I'm opening JSConf with a talk about CSS. Are you excited about CSS? Yes! Oh my god, yes, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Because I'm going to talk a lot about CSS. So I'm Agnieszka Naplocha. I'm super, super excited to be in Singapore. And my talk is titled Artistic CSS. And I hope that you're going to join my CSS journey, in which I'm going to tell you how CSS and art intermingle with each other, how art movements and design movements actually inspire me to dig deeper in CSS. I hope that you will find it creative. I hope that you will find your inner artist. I hope that you will be eager more to experiment. And I'm going to share some facts about history of art, so I also hope that it's going to be useful and interesting in your daily work. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter, and I'm really eager to get some recommendations what to do in Singapore, also in terms of art and design. Yes, but before I actually start, I would like to ask all of you to close your eyes. All of you. I can see some eyes open. Okay, so close your eyes, try to be relaxed, don't fall asleep. So try to remind the moment when you were recently inspired by the art or design. Think whether was it in the art gallery, the art museum, or maybe on the street. Was it the painting, the sculpture, maybe the performance? What was very specific in it? Was it the color, the shape, the composition, or the overall style? What did you actually do about it? Did you apply it somewhere? Did you tell about it to your friends? Okay, so you can now open your eyes. And I have to confess that art and the real world is something that I'm super inspired by. Although I'm a web designer and coder, and I spent a lot of time in front of computer screen, actually the real world, the analog world, brings a lot of ideas to me. And I always try to keep myself awake and keep my eyes wide open whenever I travel, whenever I visit museums or art galleries. And I'm also addicted to it. I traveled a lot this year, and I visited tons of museums and cool exhibitions. And what I found is that there is a connection between web design, CSS, and art. And this was actually the stimulus that pushed me forward to create this talk. Another one was the tweet by Christopher Van Son, in which he's writing, "Wish more people knew what CSS is capable of." There are so many possibilities now for more creative, fun, and unique layouts. But I just don't see them happening that often. And it's true, because we're still stuck in 12 column grids and 3 boxes. We always see the website like as a boxy thing. So I hope that my talk about artistic and design movements will give you an incentive to explore and experiment with CSS, because it's a very creative tool. So the first design movement I'm going to mention, well, actually, you're going to guess which one is that. My hint is that it's celebrating 100th anniversary this year. And what I would like to do right now is to open Twitter, if you're a user account, Twitter account. If not, you can pair up with someone who has a Twitter account. And I'm tweeting, Agnieszka Naplocha is my Twitter handle. I'm tweeting a poll on Twitter right now. I hope that you're going to see it in a second. And I'm going to give you 10 seconds to vote. So there are 3 design art movements mentioned. So which that celebrate 100th anniversary this year? Is it Dadaism, is it Bauhaus, or is it Impressionism? So I'm waiting for your votes. Refreshing Twitter nervously. I can't see anything, but just giving 10 seconds more. Maybe I'll switch to my mobile data. Let's see whether you're art experts or not. Okay. can't see any votes. I don't know what's happening. Can you see the tweet with the poll? Yes. Have you already voted? Okay. So, and could you see the result? You can see. Okay, so, okay, I can see it right now. So there's a half-half for Bauhaus Impressionism. So the proper answer is, happy birthday, Bauhaus. So Impressionism was is a bit before, because it was 19th century, and Bauhaus was created in 1919. So it's like the true 100th anniversary. So Bauhaus was a design school. It was operating between 1919 and 1933 in Germany. It was created by Walter Gropius in Weimar in Germany, and it was something totally new. Yeah, sure. Is it better now? Hey, hello? Check. Okay, thank you. So Bauhaus was something totally different. It was a definitive new art school. So in Bauhaus, they wanted to unify art, architecture, and craft together. They also embraced technology, so they weren't afraid of experiments. They also encouraged students to dig more into typography, theory of colors. Is it fine? And performance. So they really were into simplicity, minimalism, and pure geometric forms. As you can see, this is the example, the works that were created in around 1920s. And you can see that they're still very modern, and designers from 21st century could created it. So what was also very special about Bauhaus is that they wanted to have mass production in its core. So they think very practically in all walks of life and in all disciplines of art and design. And also practical minds of Bauhaus, they were focused on minimalism and pure form in terms of like visual stuff. So they worked on grid a lot. And this is something that we also have in CSS. And this is the connection between Bauhaus, very practical, and CSS. So we all know that CSS is shipped to browsers. We know that we can experiment a lot. But I'm sure there are some people who haven't already dig deeper into it. And in terms of the browser support, it's getting a lot of better. You can see the green light, so it's a good sign for us. At the same time, you might think that the grid also, it's kind of a limitation. And it also pushed us forward, pushed us actually toward more backseat layouts. Yeah, sure. Is it better now? Is the volume okay? Can you hear me? Is it fine? Okay. Okay. I don't think, okay, I'll try to not to laugh and make stupid sounds. So, so what is very important in terms of grid is actually yeah, of course, it has some constraints, some limitation, but actually breaking the grid, breaking the rules is super interesting from the user perspective, because when you see the Lufthansa like Swiss-like poster, you'll see that letter L is off the grid, and it's something that attracts users' attention. So you can also treat the grid just like the way of experiments, and also a way of putting elements in different places, not very usual. And what I love about CSS Grid and Firefox developer tools is that it actually bridged the gap between designers and developers. And this is very Bauhaus-like idea, because Bauhaus wanted to bring engineers, designers, technologists together. And also, I think that DevTools is a perfect example of doing it, because you've got a great a panel for CSS Grid, which you can immediately dive into it. So if you work closely with designers, I strongly recommend you to show it to your fellow friends. And also new thing is happening. So subgrid was already mentioned at JSConf.Asia this year in Berlin by Rachel Andrew. And with subgrid, you can create even more complex and complicated layouts because you can nest grid inside. And you can also use the tracks definition of the parent. In terms of support, well, it's not that good yet. But I took this screenshot a couple of days ago, and I also opened Twitter after a while, and I stumbled upon this tweet by Jen Simmons that subgrid is actually coming to Firefox. So it's in a we're happy, woo! So you can experiment in Firefox nightly because currently it's in a working draft. And when mentioning about the grid, I also want to tell about the Stahl. So this is the movement which was created actually 1 year before Bauhaus in the Netherlands. Well, we have people from the Netherlands. Hello. So by the way, I love the Netherlands. So so the style was, for me, it's super inspiring in terms of form, colors, typography, and the most famous representative of the style is Mondrian. And I hope that you've seen his work somewhere. It's super grid-oriented. And some people might think that, well, is it an art? But for me, it's like so fascinating. There are primary colors and like pure form, which is, for me, super big inspiration for building the layouts. And this is what also Jen Simmons does with Experiment Layout Lab. This is her website, and I strongly recommend you to visit it and to dig deeper. And I love that she rotated the whole grid, and it's such a playful thing. So as you can see, it's built on grid. Another website that I stumbled upon is the Deck. So this website actually won the competition on Smashing Mag for the most creative usage of grid. Not only it's a perfect example of creativity with grid, but also I love the pure form, the colors, the shapes, and they're very Mondrian-like, and taking a lot of inspiration from the style. So summing up the first design movement, which was Bauhaus and the style, we have CSS grid and subgrid, and please use it in a creative manner, use it with crazy ideas. I hope that you will enjoy it. So coming up to the second one, I would like to mention about postmodernism and collage. So the term collage was actually mentioned in the beginning of 20th century by Georges Braque and Pablo Picasso. I guess that you know the second one for sure. So collage is all about mixing different media, and you must say that it looks very creative. And I think that working with paper and scissors brings a lot of ideas, and not only is very relaxing, but also broaden your artistic horizons and bring a lot of ideas. So I'm super inspired by one Polish girl, one Polish designer. Her name is Barakus, and she does a lot of work with paper and digital artwork with collage. She's been working with many widely known brands like Spotify, also fashion brands. And when I see her work, I immediately think how I can reuse some of the concept and transfer it to the World Wide Web. So I started seeing CSS just like scissors, and I think that's a super creative tool. So I'm such a huge fan of Barakus that I also attended her workshops, where we were supposed to create collages for Coco Chanel, and it was tons of fun. You have to try one day to do the collage only with paper, because it's just like with sketching. Before you actually sit to graphics editor, you can just take all your creative ideas and just present it on a paper. It's much more easier rather than clicking and pushing pixels. So this is one of my work. I started to experiment with CSS. What you can see here, there are some images, but I used CSS to actually cut it out. And you can see some see-through, you can see some flowers coming up from the jacket, you can see some glitter and also glitter under women's eyes. So I used CSS masking. So masking helps us to reveal or hide some elements in CSS. It also defines the transparency levels, so we can influence on the alpha channel. So the mask image is combined with the image source, and it's counted like the levels of transparency. So here in this example, we've got a simple image, and we have the mask applied. So it just cuts out part of the jacket, and underneath I applied a GIF file. Just simple as that. For the glitter splash, I also use masking. And here's the example. So I've just have the simple container with the background, which is this GIF, and I apply masking and some sort of colors addition using blend modes. If you would like to have the different transparency levels, you can do it with masking. And here is the example with mask with, it's like fading out to the corner, and you can also see that the splash with the glitter is fading out. So you just simply apply it with one line of code, but you need to remember about vendor prefixes as well. We have also CSS clipping, which is to me just like scissors and paper. And it's kind of similar to masking, but for masking we can use images, and for CSS we can only use vector images, so paths, basically. So in clipping, we decide whether something is visible or not. We don't have the option for transparency levels. And this is the example, kind of my digital collage I made with CSS. So you've got the plant that is cutted out with clipping. So what I did before is I had to prepare the path, the shape of the plant. I did it in Illustrator, exported SVG, and later applied it in ClipPath. So I took the SVG code, pasted in HTML between def stacks, so it means that it won't be generated anywhere, but like our website knows what is the definition for the path. And later we just reference to it in CSS. So we've got ClipPath property. And this is how it looks in real life. We've got the plants. I also applied some background and some blend modes. And if I comment out the clip path, you will see the whole image. So simple as that. And if you're not very convinced that actually CSS, masking, and clipping are the future of web design, I would like to show you New York Times website. This is one of the articles. Although they didn't use CSS clipping or masking for cutting out those shapes, I think that more collage-like websites will be coming soon because I think it's its prime time right now. So when talking about masking, I would also like to put an accent on storytelling. So we all want to have our users attract to our website and the content. And some shapes, some visual elements actually help us to draw the attention of the users. And I was super inspired by one of the examples by Razvan Kaliman, so I decided to create my own version. So you can imagine that you're reading National Geography or some blog post about the travel to Iceland. So what is done here is that we've got the heading that has the width and the height fixed. So we can apply the background and we can apply the mask. So the mask helps us to cover the heading, and we have the impression that it's actually emerging behind the mountains. So we also have the text fixed in span tag. And it's just simple as that. And we also need to apply mask size to make it match to the background we have for the heading. And I really like this example because it's very approachable for designers, but also gives us, it's very impactful in terms of user experience and the overall impression of the website, of the article. So what I needed to prepare before is the mask image. So I carried it out in Photoshop. And after applying a mask, we have the visible area, so the area where the text will be visible. So if we have the background, it's going to be transparent, and the text will be emerging from this space. And when talking about masking, I'm super excited about mask composite. So mask composite lets us to combine, to compose many layers of images. So let's imagine we've got two masks, splashes and one gradient. So what we do is we apply two masks, and then we just need to define the compositing mode. So here there's mask composite add. And what's good to remember is that the first one is called the source, and the second is the destination. And once they're combined, later then can be applied for the image that we're going to mask. So this is the example I created, and I was inspired by some fashion magazines, and I really wanted to keep this like very artistic vibe. So we have the image, and here you can see it's actually animated. You can see different compositing modes. And in this example, you're seeing that we're having two masks. And if we apply only one, it looks like this. But if we combine them and actually add another image to make it more collage-like, we can see that it gives us a really interesting effect, very artistic. So for this one, we've got intersect compositing mode. We can use add. And we can use different. We've got 4 of them, and I'm going to show you in a minute. And for this, I also used blend modes to make it like more natural effects of the flowers and make it more blended with the first image that it's underneath. So summing up, we've got 4 compositing modes. We've got add, subtract, intersect, and exclude operators. And in terms of browser compatibility, well, it's not the best yet, but it doesn't mean that we can't experiment with it. In general, masking is better, so I think that this is the moment to start digging into now. Summing up the collage movement, it was originated by Pablo Picasso and Georges Braque in France, and CSS is deriving a lot from it through masking and clipping. So the next movement is pop art, and I hope that you're familiar with some works of Andy Warhol. And what I like about his works is the color. So when I think about color in CSS, one thing comes to my mind, and these are blend modes. So when talking about and thinking about blend modes, there is duotone effect, widely used by Spotify. And I was wondering, okay, can we do something like this with CSS? And of course we do. So this is the simple image without any changes. And these are some experiments with blend modes. So we've got the container, and inside there is an image, but there are also pseudo elements before and after created for the image container, where we have different background values, red and pink, and different mixed blend modes. We've got 16 of them, so you can experiment a lot. As you can see, we can have various effects. And again, it's pretty simple to apply and pretty creative to have on the website. So summing up, we've got pop art, and we have blend modes in CSS. And the last art movement I want to mention is one of my beloved. It's anti-design. It actually was taken from architecture and brutalism in architecture. So, for instance, Bloomberg applies a lot of anti-design ideas. So you can see that some of their ideas are kind of pretty, kind of ugly. So this is all about anti-design, where where all the errors and jamming is welcome. So this actually became a very hot design trend this year and last year as well. And in terms of representatives in art for anti-design, there is Fluxus group. For instance, Yoko Ono belonged to it. So it was originated in 60s. And what they wanted to do is like the freedom in art. So they blended a lot of different genres, and they were trying to mix some ideas from typography, from performance, stage art. So they were experimenting a lot. And I also really like the typography experiments that are presented here. So what's happening on the web are the brutalist websites that I truly love, because they're not afraid of experiments. They're kind of web non-conformists, and if I look for the inspiration, even if I work for serious clients, I always visit brutalist website. Have you ever heard about them, by the way? If you could raise your hands. Okay, so people. So if you haven't visited this website, I strongly recommend you. It's brutalistwebsites.com, and it now states that brutalist websites are dead. But if you use inspect tools, you can easily explore the website. So when looking for some ideas from anti-design and like having something that's different and more and being more rebel on the web, I found this website and I love it because it's very simple, but they used one effect with playing with perspectives and skewing, and I love the fact that the website is dedicated to architects actually. So playing with perspectives, it's very wise. And I was wondering, okay, so how can we apply it on the web? Is it difficult? And it was super easy to find this code pen by James Bosworth, and you can find the address out there. So it's just the play with CSS transforms, with skewing, and with some offsetting from the left side, and scaling the text. And it's done on hover, so it's super, super cool. And I also was exploring other websites and found this with kind of playful typography. And a thing that immediately came to my mind was variable fonts. And I hope that you're staying for Mandy's talks because she's going to show you some awesome experiments with variable fonts. Although that this is an image, I think that we can finally do some crazy stuff with CSS to have playful typography and a bit different than usual. And also playing with the perspective, and I think it's something that it's not very frequently used, but I think that we should start playing with 3D, with some skewing in CSS, because it gives a totally different impression on the web. Summing up the design trend, we have brutalism in architecture, we have got Fluxus group, and everything what's happening in brutalist website is super attractive. So please don't forget about transforming CSS and variable fonts. Well, if you're afraid of experiments and you think that it's not that easy to take a risk and apply all these CSS properties which are not fully shipped yet, I just recommend you to use supports rule, which works just like media query. So if the browser doesn't support a block of code, a block of CSS, it will just skip it. So we use it in this manner. And if you don't visit museums often or don't want to look for inspiration in the analog world, if I could recommend something, I would recommend Pinterest. So I have my own board, which is called CSS Inspirations, and I usually take some pins from the print and the tutorial, because I think that print gives us a lot of ideas what we can do with CSS. So summing up, we have CSS Grid I mentioned about clipping and masking, which for me are just like scissors in CSS. We have variable fonts. We've got blend modes. I didn't mention writing modes, but this is also super cool and super creative to have different ways of showing and aligning the text. So I hope that you feel inspired. And you're eager to start digging into CSS. And before I finish my talk, I actually would like to invite you for a quiz. I have some prizes, candies from Poland and stickers from the Awwwesomes. And what I'd like to ask you right now is to pair up with someone from the audience. You can meet new friends. And open the browser with your mobile phone. This is the address that you're going to use. It's called Kahoot IT. And I'm going to quickly launch the quiz. Yep, just. So we're going to see the quiz, team mode. Just waiting. The music is out there. Okay, so this is the code you should enter in the browser. And the important thing is that you're going to choose the shape, not the answer. So please pay attention, and you cannot change the answer, and only one is correct. So we're waiting for the teams. Unicorn, awesome. Okay, I'm going to wait 10 seconds for people to join. So many people, oh my God. Okay, waiting 10 more seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm starting. Sorry if you're not on the list. So we've got 5 questions. I hope that you were focused. Who is connected with the term collage? Braque and Picasso, Walter Gropius, Piet Mondrian, or Fluxus? Okay, we'll get 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so the answer is yes, it's Braque and Picasso, so congratulations. Let's then go to the next. Let me win, congratulations. Next question. Who did it belong? Sorry? Okay. So who did it belong to the style movement? It's Pablo Picasso, Salvador Dali, Piet Mondrian, Georges Braque. Okay, so it's Piet Mondrian. And the last question, because I'm running out of time, so we're going, Alex, okay, congrats. We're going to have the last question. Which of the composite operators does not exist? Is it add, multiply, intersect, or exclude? Sorry, there's a typo. Time counts, so be fast. Okay, no, I need to wait 6 seconds to get the final results. Okay. So, it's Alex. So, Alex, Sean, and Dur, if you could come to me afterwards during the break, I have some prizes for you. Congratulations. Yes, and so the final slides, I hope that you enjoyed the quiz. So my message to you is just to observe the world because we have tons of inspirations everywhere. And I hope that you also go to some museums and art galleries and look at some pieces of art with fresh eyes. I would like to thank you for listening. And if you have some recommendations where to go in Singapore, what to eat, I'm eager to get them on, for instance, on Instagram or my Twitter. And the last thing that I want to mention is that it was my dream to come to Singapore. I'm super happy because I'm a foodie freak. And I would like to say a big thank you for Thomas and Hujing for inviting me. Thank you a lot. Sorry for running out of time. Enjoy the rest of the conference.